The pressure to buy your first home is hard to ignore. I've been thinking a lot about my parents' first house that they bought in their 20s and still live in today. It was 1989 and they closed for $64,000. That wasn't just the down payment, that was the entire cost. Back then, the math of the American dream was pretty simple. You buy early, you wait, and the house builds a life for you. But today, that buy early bonus, the wealth engine of the middle class, is slipping away. That tension between the wealth boost of buying early and the shrinking ability to do it now sits at the center of the American housing story. In investigating this issue, I've spoken to more than 30 experts, economists, and families across the country who described what it takes to get into homeownership, what happens when you can't, and how those gaps can echo across generations. When Amanda and Vincent DeReese saw this century-old Victorian fixer-upper, the realtor called it a money pit. But at 31 and 32, they weren't just looking for a roof. They were racing the clock.
She was like, this is a money pit. I don't think she thought that we were going to put it in an offer.
The problem was we were getting beat out by contractors and folks that were, just offering cash, $100,000 over asking price.
After touring homes that needed less work, Vincent says they quickly realized that the market was tilted toward cash and speed. The DeReeses knew they didn't want to wait. Buying now versus waiting until their 40s could mean a 22.5% higher net worth by age 50. That's about $119,000 in wealth created just by existing in a zip code 10 years earlier. Here's the problem. In 1990, the average first-time homebuyer was 30 years old. Today, they're 40. Look at these numbers. In 1990, a home cost about 3 times your income. Today, it's nearly 5 times. For Jackie Lamb, an accredited financial counselor and freelance writer in California, the starter home has become a myth. And so she's planning on renting indefinitely.
It has crossed my mind, of course, to consider home ownership, but it's just really, really hard.
It's not that she hasn't tried. A few years ago, Lamb went as far as getting pre-approved for a mortgage, speaking to agents, and mapping out what buying could look like on her income. The options, she says, were narrow.
You might be able to afford, here's the range. It was usually a small condo, right?
That's a far cry from the 3-bedroom starter home previous generations once expected. Back then, you could save for a down payment in about 3 years. Now, you're looking at almost a decade of saving just to get to the starting line. So Jackie is making a radical but increasingly common choice, baking rent into her retirement plans and using her capital for life now. Drum lessons, travel, hobbies. If the engine is broken, why keep pouring oil into it? It's easy to point and worry about the ramifications of lifelong renting, but without workarounds like sweat equity or family money, the door to first-time homeownership remains firmly closed. For those who do get in, there's often a hidden hand. Research from Realtor.com shows that if your parents owned a home, you are 18 percentage points more likely to own one by 35.
Well, at the moment, I don't have any wealth to transfer, so they're screwed. It's not pretty.
Aaron Skinner's father pulled equity from his own home in the UK to help Aaron buy a house in New York. It turned out to be more than just a gift. It was a safety net. When Aaron was laid off, the house became a short-term rental, an income property that has kept the family afloat. Then there's Sindhu Nair. She didn't buy until she was 46, but even buying late, aka in your 40s, can still change a family's financial trajectory. The compounding window may be shorter, but owning can still provide stability, force savings through principal paydown, and a foothold that renters don't get.
I would pay my landlord through Cash App, and I saw how much I was paying in rent and decided no, that's money that I could have been putting towards a house.
Even if you miss the early bird bonus, the divide is still staggering. Homeowners in the U.S. have roughly 38 times the net worth of renters. For Sindhu, a 3.5% down payment on a $325,000 row house wasn't about the perfect interest rate. It was about leverage and independence.
I think of this house as part of my assets.
Her moment of clarity underscores a second benefit of homeownership. By midlife, the timing edge narrows, but the homeowner-renter divide remains vast. And it's an important distinction to make, because for many, buying later isn't a preference, it's the only possible timeline. The American housing story used to have a very tidy ending. Buy, build, and pass it on. But in speaking with these families, I've realized that the ending is getting a lot more complicated. For the DeReeses, it's a lifetime house. For Jackie, it's a life of flexibility without equity. For Aaron, it's a worry that the bridge his father built might end with him. And Cindy reminds us that perhaps late is better than never. We're moving towards a future where a home isn't just a place to live. It's the ultimate divider between those who get a head start and those who are left chasing a clock that's about to run out. In the next few weeks, Realtor.com will report out a series of follow-up stories that continue to look deeper into the changing narratives around generational wealth in the U.S. And while we found plenty of obstacles, we also found just as many reasons for hope.